Want to learn a ton about hormones, testosterone, and more? Then you've come to the right place. Jody here, founder and CEO of Thumos USA, home of Being Better Men. A couple of weeks ago, during our Inner Circle Zoom call, we had a very special guest join us, a guy who goes by the name of Nelson Virgil. If you don't know that name, Nelson is an authority figure slash expert when it comes to hormone replacement therapy. Nelson's also the founder and CEO of DiscountedLabs.com and excelmale.com. Nelson spends over an hour with us during this call that you get to watch that basically explains the basics of hormones, how to optimize, what to look out for, and more. If you like what you see, please like, please share, please subscribe, and you can check out the links below. Enjoy.
Great. Thanks a lot for having me. I have to say I'm a little like fish out of water, but I'm going to try to behave tonight because I talk a lot. So I'm from Venezuela. That's where you hear the Spanish accent. Being here forever, never got rid of the accent. But I'm going to try because everybody's home and they have kids and it's late. So I'm going to try not to talk too much, but talk enough. So, because I love what I do. So thanks a lot, Jody. Jody contacted me like 2 months ago. And I get emails and contact from people, and usually they want something or they're selling something, right? But Jody was different. I heard about his. We talked on the phone, which I usually don't talk on the phone because he had a very compelling story. We have something in common. He works for Shell. I used to work for Shell. I was an engineer back in the days before I said I'm going to leave my career and do what I'm doing now, which is a huge risk. But I've been doing this for, I don't know, 30 some years. I've been on testosterone myself for 34 years. I'm 63 years of age, Venezuelan. But when I talked to Jody, I really captured the passion and the purpose that he had. And I was just hooked. I told him, whatever you need. I've been around. I'm 63. I've made a lot of mistakes in my freelancing career and doing my own thing. So I hope that I can make a difference because I think what Jody's doing is very different than what I've seen all over the country. Hands-on work. That takes guts, it takes passion, it takes commitment. You have to give a lot of yourself. So more power to you, Jody, and all of you, by the way, because this is definitely great work. So today I wanted to talk about basics, man, because obviously I don't want to keep you guys here for forever. And I said to Jody, I was not going to do a lecture or show slides, but I'm entertaining, but I'm not that entertaining. I need pictures. Otherwise, you guys may just, get bored with me. So I wanted to see if it's okay, Jody, just a few pictures and slides that and I'm just going to give you some resources. So I'm not trying to sell anything today. There's no selling. There's nothing. I'm just going to share doing this for you guys and Jody. I want to share what I just love this stuff, man. It's life changing. And it's changed my life. It's changed the lives of God, many men. And I'm now working, thank God, with also women because obviously I started getting emails from my hey, I feel great, but my lady is not really responding to my advances because she's tired and a little off due to probably her hormones. Can anybody see my slide, Beyond Testosterone?
Yeah,
Can you
looks
see it?
good. Yep.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is a free book. It's it's basically 420 pages. Okay, it's all graphics. There's no text. I can't really type much. It's a long story, but it's free to download. I have a forum, excelmale.com. It's 11 years old. There are over 40,000 men from all over the world chatting daily, so it's a little busy. Mostly about testosterone, aging, erectile dysfunction, sexual dysfunction, mood, depression, you name it, all things related to men's health. And I'm very proud of it. It's probably I'm very proud of it. We moderate it so there is no abuse, there is no spamming, there is no mistreatment of anybody. We ban people if they mistreat. So I'm really proud of it. It's free. I work with different clinics and doctors around the country, but this book is basically a compilation of my slides that I use to train physicians that are in the field of hormone replacement. It's called Beyond Testosterone. You can go to excelmale.com and download it there. And it'll take you a while because there's a lot of info. And today I just want to cover the real basics. It's what is testosterone? Why is this such a hot thing now? Uh, I think so many may even be wondering if there's pressure from marketing and the pharmaceutical companies and all that, because it's really hyped up. Like Viagra has been hyped up for years, like everything else, testosterone is hyped up. And obviously, it's not all good. There's some negative aspects of the treatment if you don't know what you're doing. And as we all know, hormones tend to decrease as we age. There are only two basically hormones that go up as we age. And one of them is cortisol. It's an inflammation hormone that once we accumulate a lot of it, we tend to gain fat, lose muscle mass. Cortisol is good as anti-inflammatory, but it's not good in excess. And insulin also goes up as we age because our pancreas and our insulin resistance increases. So, but everything else from testosterone, growth hormone, thyroid starts depleting as we get older. And some people, there's a lot of philosophical arguments about whether or not this is the way it should be because nature is trying to slow us down for death. Where we've actually passed our usefulness in nature for reproduction or whatever it is. Well, that's a philosophical argument that I obviously don't share. So I do believe that there are healthy ways to maintain testosterone, growth hormone, thyroid, and slow down. Not we're all gonna die. So that's for sure. We don't have disagreements of that. But it's how we live in our last years, how much disability we have, how independent are we? Are people taking care of us? Are we being able to go up and down the stairs, et cetera, et cetera? That can be slowed down. That can be improved. So that's where I disagree with the philosophers about, we just should not be messing around with nature because nature is really slowing us down for that hole in the ground. And the symptoms of testosterone deficiency or low testosterone, and the only way to find out if you have low testosterone is through a blood test, obviously. But a lot of these symptoms look like everything else, man. Decreased sex drive, vitality, fatigue, mood changes, insomnia, anemia, delayed ejaculation, and hot flushes, believe it or not, like women in menopause, erectile dysfunction, decreased muscle mass, increased visceral fat, testicular atrophy or shrinkage of the testicles, weakness, loss of bone density, loss of actually facial hair or body hair. And yeah, a lot. Some people may have a few of these, some people may not. Some people may have all of this and not have low testosterone. And that's something that is very important to stress because obviously we're getting bombarded by all this. I would say there are over 10,000 testosterone clinics in this country now. I think we have more testosterone clinics than Starbucks. I really believe so. And I'm not going to get into the details of why that's happening, but it's definitely a very strong. I'm sure you guys, when you do Google searches of anything, you get hit with the testosterone clinic ads. But it's not that simple. We have to basically not assume that because you have some of the symptoms, you automatically need testosterone. I'm not really, people think I'm pro testosterone. I want everyone on testosterone. Not really. Actually, I'm not. I'm very conservative when it comes to that. I jumped into testosterone myself for many health reasons. And we don't have to go through them today because it really is a long kind of drawn out soap opera if I start talking about the story of how I started on this, even though I'm a chemical engineer, I'm not a physician. But testosterone, the body, actually, our testicles produce it daily, obviously, 5 to 7 milligrams. And testosterone, once it hits the bloodstream, it starts converting into other things. It doesn't just stay as testosterone. A metabolite is called DHT, which some studies link it to hair loss or even acne, but really DHT is the sex drive metabolite. It's actually what makes us horny, okay? And I'm going to talk a little bluntly here. There is a 2% of the total. This total, only 2% is free, it's unbound, it hasn't been caught up by something we call sex hormone binding globulin. So it's floating around to actually go into the receptors, increase our muscle mass, increase our mood, increase our libido, et cetera, et cetera. And some of it, only a 0.4, 0.3, 0.4%, tiny amount, is converted into female hormone, estrogen. And people, all the guys think, oh my God, that must be bad. I need to block down my estrogen. Actually, men need estrogen just like women need testosterone. And a lot of people think women don't have testosterone. No, women need testosterone for the same reasons that men need it, for sex drive, for muscle mass, bone density, etc. We need estrogen too. We need estrogen to keep our heart healthy, our cholesterol in check, our moods, our sex drive is linked to estrogen. So there's a lot of bad information out in the internet about using estrogen blockers to block these nasty hormones. There's nothing that nature has made, an evolution, obviously, millions of years, that is a waste or is toxic. If it's being produced by the body, it's for a good reason. Yeah, it's called estradiol, which is the main estrogen, but that doesn't mean that we're going to have increased breast size, gynecomastia, or we're going to become more women-like. It has nothing to do with it. It's only 0.4% anyways. But just wanted to bring that up because it's like a myth. So we have a cascade. We have like the pituitary gland. I'm sorry, the hypothalamus, the pituitary is right here behind your nostrils. And then we have the testicles. And there's a cascade that happens of signals to make your testicles produce testosterone. When we inject testosterone or use a testosterone gel, for instance, or cream, our bodies detect, hey, wait a minute, somebody's giving us testosterone from the outside world. Stop this. So basically shuts down this cascade. And what happens is in this cascade, there are two hormones called LH and FSH that also we need it for sperm production and to keep fertile. So that's something that some doctors don't tell their patients. Hey, you're going to start testosterone. You may actually not going to be able to, father a child or impregnate your wife or your girl or all that, because testosterone can shut down, not completely, but can shut down healthy sperm production. So we'll talk about it in your questions, but there are ways to get around that. So as I said before, the testosterone is bound, unbound, and not all the same when it comes to once it hits the bloodstream. And the first question I get is, okay, my testosterone is kind of borderline. I have the symptoms. How can I increase testosterone without injecting testosterone, without using any testosterone products? And yeah, there are ways to do it. There may be an increase of 20 points to 100 points. And the first factor is sleep, good sleep. And not only amount of sleep, but the sleep hygiene. And what that means is what kind of habits we have. I mean, do we go to bed at the same time and we get up at the same time? Do we tend to read our iPhones and iPads in bed and expose ourselves to blue light, which is being shown to decrease the hormonal production at night? When we're sleeping, we really are, that's when we produce a lot of these hormones. And so when we don't sleep enough or well enough, testosterone is not going to be produced the same. Thyroid is not. Growth hormone also is produced a lot at night. So nighttime is really not only the time where obviously we are regenerating, but our hormones are spiking. And then they start going down during the night. So, and a lot of us are not sleeping well. And there are many reasons. I mean, obviously we have a lot of gadgets now that really take away from sleep. And weight loss, if we're overweight, our testosterone can decrease. But that's easily said than done. We've been exposed to a lot of toxins, especially plastic-related monomers. And Jody knows this because we worked Shell and all the productions, not only of petrochemicals, but also plastics. And we are in contact with plastics all the time. Even, our clothing, our chairs we sit, everywhere is potentially exposing us to BPH and other toxins. If our blood sugars are not normal or we're not controlling it well, we may have problems with testosterone. People with type 1 and type 2 diabetes have a high risk of low testosterone. Exercising increases testosterone, at least temporarily, is not, you have to exercise at least 3 to 4 times a week for an hour just to increase maybe 100 points. And no matter how many billions of dollars are spent on buying supplements, testosterone boosters, that's the biggest ripoff that is happening all over the world. I mean, there are thousands if you go to Amazon, and they all have 5 stars. in reviews, and you wonder if those reviews are paid for, because none of them work. And if they did work, they would be shut down by the FDA, as simple as that. And that's a big mistake. I've seen a lot of, and some OTC, some over-the-counter boosters actually have anabolic steroids from China, that may actually influence your cascade, your hormone cascade. Some of them that the FDA has tested have actually been found to have Cialis or Viagra. So people say, oh, I feel my testosterone is going up because I'm getting better erections. It really is counterfeit ED drugs, erectile dysfunction drugs from Asia. And because most supplements are not tested by the FDA, and we want to keep it that way. We don't want the FDA to be, controlling our supplements, but there's such a thing as spot on. FDA picks a few supplements and spot test them. So these are the 10 basic questions that most doctors, if they're doing their job, ask you to see whether or not they should send you for a blood test of testosterone. Do you have decreased libido? Do you have lack of energy, decreased strength and endurance? Have you lost weight? Once we get older, we tend to lose weight. It's basically loss of bone density in older people. Have you noticed a decreased enjoyment of life? Are you sad or grumpy? Are your erections less strong? Have you noticed a recent deterioration in your ability to play sports? Are you falling asleep after dinner? Has there been any recent deterioration in your work performance? So you have to answer yes to 1 and 7, and yes to more than 3 questions. If that's the case, it's called the ADAM questionnaire. And some doctors use it, most doctors do, and then they say, hey, maybe you have low testosterone, and then obviously they send you for blood testing. And that's where the real discussion happens, because insurance companies, most of them consider low testosterone a level of 350 nanograms. I'm not going to bore you with the details on that, but some guys may come at 340, and insurance companies say, well, I'm not going to pay for it, even though they have all symptoms. And I'm sorry, 360, and they're so close to the low side. Some men may be in the middle of the range at 500, and some clinics still prescribe them. So it depends. If you want to go through insurance is tougher. Insurance basically, obviously, requires that level, 350, 300. If you want, out of the thousands of clinics, most of them don't take insurance. They're cash-based, and something you're going to realize right away. And those cash-based clinics have a lot more flexibility because they don't have to deal with insurance. And all of them use compounded products that I'll show you real quick. So you know that pharmaceutical products are not the only options for testosterone, especially if you're having this. It's busy, but I just wanted to tell you that every blood testing variable has a range, and there are things that doctors can do for each range. The main side effect of testosterone, it happens, I would say, easily in at least 50% of men, is that we start producing a lot of red blood cells, because testosterone really stimulates the bone marrow. And that's okay. I mean, if you're anemic, you need red blood cells. But if you're normal, your red blood cells are normal, and your red blood cells start building up, your blood viscosity really starts going up, and you're making the heart pump a lot harder, a lot more viscous fluid. And that's not good. That's not good for heart attacks and for strokes. So that's the main one. And that's easily tested with a real cheap test anyways. If you really have high red blood cells, or hematocrit, we call it, they send you to donate blood, okay? And that's fine. You're helping the world by doing so, but some guys are sent to donate blood too frequently. And that can be a problem, because you deplete your iron and your ferritin, and you actually return to having fatigue, depression. All those symptoms happen when your iron is low. So some doctors, that's why somebody like me, I'm still doing this work after 30 years. I thought I really was going to walk away from this and move on into whatever, but I see the same mistakes being made weekly, because obviously I hear from the guys on my forum. I also have a Facebook group of 16,000 guys. So these are a bunch of the pharmaceutical options for testosterone replacement. We obviously have the injections. They have been around for I don't know, 50 years. They're the cheapest option. Um, and we have creams. There are a few. There one that is actually under the armpits, androgel on the abdominal area. We have, you name it. We have different. Now I think we have 8 different gels and creams. We have pellets, tiny little grains that look like salt grains that are put under the skin, and they release testosterone slowly. We have a patch. That's an old version. Nobody I know is still using the patch. It was very, the release of testosterone into the body was very slow. And these are the pharmaceutical products that you can get, obviously, by prescription. And you would have to get them through insurance because, except the injections, all of them cost around retail around $1,000 a month, believe it or not. Testosterone is a cheap molecule, and the injections cost even, let's say $50 a month. So all of these fancy products are obviously very expensive. Insurance pays for most of them, and you may or may not have a copay, obviously. These are newer products. This is a long-acting testosterone injection that you can inject every 2.5 months. Long release, like a slow release testosterone. Insurance also based. Some insurance don't want to pay for it. It's a long story. I really don't have much time to go into the details. And believe it or not, there is a nasal spray, nasal gel called Natesto, which is done twice a day. To increase your testosterone for those that do not want to inject, do not want to have a cream, want to have a little bit of a boost. And it's not a little boost, it's a large boost. It's 2 peaks a day. By the way, I've tried all of them, so I can write the book and obviously my own experiences. I have biases, everybody does. This nasal thing gave me sinus problems and headaches, so I definitely not a it sounds like a fun thing to do, but not really for me. And these are the old testosterone injections, esters. And esters are a fancy word for a change that researchers did to the molecule so that the body would not get rid of testosterone quickly. It would actually stay in your system for at least a week to do. And they're all very low and reasonably priced. Um, the FDA approved 2 years ago an oral testosterone that you take twice per day, and it's not liver toxic. It's been around for a long time in Canada and other countries. None of my guys, and I have thousands of guys that have really started using it. I don't know if they're selling at all. These are a company that got kind of smart. They are using the old testosterone injectables, the testosterone enanthate, and they just got the FDA to approve a self-injector, especially for the guys that are really afraid of injecting. It's basically you pull. It's almost like what do you call that for the allergies? You self-inject right away. It's super expensive and really is a hassle, in my point of view, for the price that they're trying to charge for this little device. I'm almost done, by the way. And these are compounded products. These are testosterone products made by compounding pharmacies. Pharmaceutical companies are really trying to get the FDA to shut these companies down because they provide products at a fraction of the cost, and they make all these products themselves legally. But it's a constant battle. There are a lot of lobbyists in the Congress trying to from pharma, trying to push. Obviously, I'm very pro compounding pharmacies because of the pricing and the fact that yeah, it's 1/10 of the cost, and even if your insurance companies don't want to pay for products, you can actually it's affordable for most people. And there are many ways to inject. I'm not going to go through all the details, but we used to inject every 2 weeks back in the days, and that was a way to do it. But now we've changed. In the field, we're changing to smaller injections twice a week. Some guys inject 3 times a week. It's subcutaneous, like you inject insulin under the skin. We don't use deep injections anymore like we used to. Many things have changed because we've seen data now that we don't have to be so extreme in injecting deep inside the muscle in the glutes. So depending on the doctor, depending on the clinic, depending on your experience, and that's what's happening in all the forums and in my world, that it takes 6 months or so to kind of fine tune your dosage, whether or not you choose injectables versus creams or gels, it takes a while. It takes not only blood work that is required, not only before you start, but also after 2 months, and then after a few more months, depending on the dosage, you have to fine tune the dosage. And many doctors, primary care doctors, do not even test. They don't even fine tune. So a lot of guys get frustrated and drop off testosterone treatment because they were never optimized. And I know that's a word you guys actually enjoy and like in this work. And they're, the old-fashioned ways to inject was in the glutes. I did that for at least 20 years with a 1.5 inches needle. It was, I did it. It wasn't fun. And then we started realizing that injecting, and this is the way I inject, a tiny little insulin syringe on my delts or even under the skin is good enough. Especially if you do it obviously twice a week, a smaller dosage. So that's the way we're all moving to. It's less painful, less trouble. You only need really one hand. You don't have to spend money on more supplies. And it's really what most people are doing. So for those guys that have low testosterone and have all the symptoms, the question is, how long does it take for me to see benefits? And that's where I see the most frustration. And then the most frustration from my side too, because everybody wants a quick fix. I mean, we're in a society, obviously, that we want a pill to solve our problems, and we want it now, and we want to see the benefits tomorrow. And I tell guys, you're going to have a placebo effect that you're going to see right away. Within a day, you're going to feel like a stud and sex drive and erectile function and all that. But really, it's placebo. It takes a few days to weeks to see improvements. And this is actually a study that reviewed a lot of data on, and these are days here, from 0 to 180. Blue is maximum benefit reached. So for sexual interest is right away. You see benefits within 3 to 6 weeks. Okay. And what is that? Sexual interest is really just feeling a lot more sexual, feeling like you really want to initiate sex with your partner, or you're thinking about sex more, or when you are at the gym or wherever, and you're kind of checking people out a lot more. So it's actually this desire, this craving for sex. Erections, it's erectile function is a really gray zone. I mean, for younger guys tend to respond better than the older guys when it comes to better erectile function. I would say 50% of guys don't get full recovery of erectile dysfunction. And there are many reasons for that we'll have probably more time in the future to discuss. More energy, better mood. So it takes a few days, anywhere from a month to 2 months to start seeing. And for bone improvements, bone density obviously takes a long time. So it's not a quick fix. I would say not everybody loves it. I know maybe 20% of guys get off testosterone for many reasons, and there are side effects that I'll talk about really quickly, obviously, because of time. Something that is very popular, I do tend to love this product, is called HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. It really, believe it or not, this is a hormone that is produced in large quantities through pregnancy. So they extract it from the pregnant women's urine, mostly in India. And they make it as a powder, and they ship it to the United States and to all the other countries. It is a product that increases sperm count, sperm quality, and ovulation in women. So it's a good fertility drug. It's also been proven to prevent the shrinkage of testicles while using testosterone. When testosterone, as I said, shuts down that cascade, it also shuts down testicular function. And some men may have some shrinkage, 20%, maybe 30% from original size. And HCG prevents that. HCG also, in one study, and in my case, it really definitely night and day improves sex drive, libido. And I didn't start using HCG until like 12 years ago, and I've been using testosterone for 34. So I definitely saw the difference then. And if I forget to use it, I don't think about sex that much, obviously, in 62 and all that. But it really is at night and day. And when I use it, obviously, I do get more sexual. So for me, there's a very strong association. Some guys, I would say 30% of guys don't like it because sometimes they feel a little too amped up, or they start retaining a lot of water and they feel puffy. So I said, there's no single product that worked for all of us, obviously. And some men, obviously testosterone, even if they started low, may not be for them. So that's a thing that I'm seeing a lot in the marketing, that everybody thinks it's going to work for everybody, and they get really the solution when it's not. These are products for erections, for erectile dysfunction, that are not testosterone. Some men on testosterone get higher sex drive, libido. They feel more obviously driven to have sex and initiate sex, but some of them may not have complete resolution of erectile dysfunction. And these products are all injectable in the penis, except this one. This is an antidote. And to get a really strong erection, basically most porn stars use this. And that's why they look like, they're supermen, most of them, because an erection can last, 1-2 hours, even longer, which is not a good thing. And that's why there's an antidote to bring them down. And obviously the oral Viagra and Cialis and all that. Some men do not. I can take most of them because I get sinus congestion, headaches, acid indigestion, and Cialis can cause, like in my case, back pain. So so there are other options. These are all compounded. For men that say, listen, I have a sex drive. I just want to make sure that I don't get soft in the middle of it, or even as I start, because not only erectile function has a lot of not only mental aspects of it. I mean, performance anxiety. Many of the guys that I've coached in the past are divorced, and they're starting to date again. They're in their 40s or 50s and dating usually younger women. So some of them tend to have performance anxiety, which is really a vicious circle or cycle that just feeds on itself. So there's this mental aspect of I'm not going to perform well, or I'm not going to be a stud, I'm not going to keep my woman happy. And for them, these injectables, which are really cheap too, work amazing. And these are prescription drugs from compounding pharmacies. And as I said, their blood work, blood testing that is required initially 8 to 6 weeks, 6 months, and once a year, once you're optimized. Excelmale, as I said, .com is my forum. It's free. It's where you'll be amazed how many guys are super smart guys are sharing. There's some doctors there too. Um, I love it. I'm very proud of it. I would enjoy if you guys register. It's a self promoting picture of me in a more shaped, ribbed years, like 5 years ago. But I do, and this is how I make my living, because obviously I was giving a lot of my time for free in the past. But I do sell lab testing or blood testing anywhere in the United States, except Louisiana, which I'm working on. I'm getting a doctor there. We require a doctor in every state to have a license. So we're working on getting one really soon for Louisiana and Oklahoma. Those are the only 2 states that I'm not currently serving. But you can go online and buy blood tests. We provide the prescription, and you go to the closest Quest diagnostic location, get the blood test done, and we email you the results. And we hook you up with doctors if you need, obviously, treatment, or if you need a coach, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the only country in the world where consumers have power. I have to say this because I have guys from all over the world emailing me. No, you cannot do this. Well, I'm sure in developing countries, there's a lot we can do, like getting OTC, over the counter testosterone. But to get your own blood testing without having to see a doctor, it's really a luxury that we have. Canada doesn't have it. The UK doesn't have it. Germany doesn't have it. So we are the only, and we are really protecting that. We don't want to be shut down. Like everything in life, when it comes to consumer options, there is a war against consumer options. So fingers crossed. I've been doing this for 6 years, and so far so good. So I think that's it. And this is coming up. I'm launching this next month. It's Hormone Clinic Finder. It's a directory, international directory of hormone doctors, not only testosterone, but thyroid, not only for men, but also for women. So very excited because there's not such a thing. There's not a directory, not in the United States or not around the world, of clinics, and you can actually fill out a questionnaire on what you're looking for, and you'll get contacted depending on what you're looking for, what kind of services. So excited about that. And this is it. I'm going to stop sharing. And I think because I didn't stop for questions, so okay, we did okay. So any questions? I just shoot them. I just gave you a really fast overview that it will just give you a taste of it.
Hey, Nelson, thank you. That was beautiful. I'm not surprised.
Thank you.
I believe everyone out there, man or woman, should know blood work. Beyond testosterone, like Nelson, I agree. Not everyone should be on testosterone. I do think everyone should know, and I'm talking to men here especially, what their testosterone is, total and free, because they both matter. Total is the amount of money that you have working with. Free is the amount of money that you get to use from the trust fund. Total and free both matter. But in addition to that, for your Aunt Sally or your wife, beyond the sexual hormones, vitamin D, as in dog. Everyone should know that. I go for optimal, so 30 is not enough for me. I want more. I want between 60 and 80 for me. Discounted Labs does that. It's one click away. Nelson, I think it was like $60. It was a huge bargain the last time I looked.
Yeah, I have the lowest prices in the United States. There's no question about it. So,
yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to let people know the beauty. It's coming soon to Louisiana, right? For those of you in Texas and Ohio and the other states, you're ready to roll. And it's all under a doctor, so you don't have to go see your own doctor. You click, add to your cart, get what you want, go to your local Quest, and get it done. Question for you, Nelson, if I may. So my belief is every man, even a 25-year-old, should go get blood work done to know a baseline. But more so, I guess the question is, the average 40-year-old comes to you. Where do you have him start? Like what tests to go get? It's probably so it's starting with a blood test. Where do you have him start?
Well,
go to your picture.
It depends on the financial state of that person, because some guys want to check everything under the sun, and I really don't agree you should, because remember too that hormones change during the day. Okay, hormones actually testosterone, and there are 3 studies that have actually followed men through 3 years, and there's seasonal variations. Summer, we tend to have a little higher than winter. So it's not only the time of day, which usually should be in the morning. Our testosterone peaks in the morning. And once you have breakfast, temporarily, your testosterone drops by 20 to 30%. Temporarily. Once insulin goes up, there'll be like 3 or 4 hours where your testosterone is, while you're digesting, is lower. So on an empty stomach, early in the morning, most labs open at 8 a.m. So testosterone. So, if you're a man that, can spend $100, you can get your testosterone, your estrogen, your thyroid tested, believe it or not, with $100. And that would give you just a general idea. Okay, my thyroid is very important. Thyroid is probably the most under-tested, underdiagnosed issues out there. Testosterone, I have to say, used to be. Now it's not, because we have so much, as I said, so many clinics out there pushing for this. But a thyroid test is like $18, and if you add more, because you have to go into more details depending on that level, and a low thyroid can give you all the same symptoms as low testosterone, plus gaining fat easily, gaining weight easily, and being cold easily. So yeah, you'll be amazed how many doctors just check your testosterone and don't check your thyroid. And that's what I would do. If I was a young man, depending. If I have symptoms, if I don't have any symptoms, if I feel great, I won't spend any money on testing. I'm sorry, I just wouldn't. Because why, right? But if you start having symptoms that you cannot explain just because you had a lot to drink last night and you didn't sleep well, and they're not just a passing thing where you feel bad for a week and then most all of us know when we're not our best, and we are not our best for a long time. And sometimes what I see, in my case, I'm talking from personal experience, we get used to a new normal. We get used to that funk that never really goes away, but we kind of get used to it. And it isn't until we test and we start those things that we say, oh my God, it's almost like you forgot how you felt when you were in top shape, right? Because we all get used to a new normal. And that's where I think the danger lies, that all of us, men and women, I'm not thinking men are trying to, I have to say, I have learned something in this business. Somebody told me 30 years ago, oh, women, you should go into the women's side because that really are the ones that really take care of themselves and test and buy products. No, they may buy cosmetics, but when it comes to testing and hormone treatments, women are behind men. Men are the ones testing, educating themselves, reading about female hormones to tell their wives. So that's what I'm seeing. 90% of people that get tested through these kind of labs are men, and they're men usually between 25, which I thought most 25-year-olds were not, and 55. For some reason, I'm not getting the older folk. I don't know if it's because they don't know there's this option or something. I'm in the age group, but the peak is around 35. And what we're seeing more and more, and there's data to prove that a lot of 20-some-year-olds are having low testosterone, which is pretty concerning. And we can talk about the reasons why. I mean, many in other, but there is. I've learned that I expected men over 45 to be the ones that really, no, we're talking about men in 25, 35 having already problems. You can have erectile dysfunction and have good testosterone, by the way. So don't link ED. ED have emotional aspects to ED. Obviously, there are many other factors involved. So that's something I tend to remind people, because say, Nelson, I started testosterone and I still cannot keep an erection for over 10 minutes with my girl. And it's like there's disappointment there because in some cases you don't see that. So a lot of clinics out there, this is what they're doing. They're putting you on a low dose testosterone. They're giving you a very low dose daily Cialis, um, a little bit of HCG, like I said before, to keep your testicles working and your sperm production. That's what they do. And some of them add this estrogen blocker and anastrozole, which I'm disagreeing with, obviously. But that's what most clinics do. They have a cocktail. There's a cookie cutter thing that is spread out through the entire United States, the cash basis clinics. If you go to your primary care doctor, he or she may or may not be testosterone friendly, because there are a lot of fears about prostate cancer, which we have completely debunked. Many studies debunking that, the theory of testosterone causing prostate cancer, and also heart attacks. There was like 5 years ago a poorly done study that the FDA got all scared about, and then obviously we had reviews of data after that, and we debunked that too. But there are many doctors that link testosterone with aggressiveness, with criminal behavior. There's a lot of stigma, less so now. So you can hear the guys actually talking about testosterone before they wouldn't talk about it. So the stigma is decreasing, but it's still there. The stigma from women and men. Women say, "Oh, testosterone. No, I don't want it. I don't need it." Well, you need it too if you have a lot of testosterone. Oh, I don't want to become a man, or I don't want to become aggressive. Which most guys I talk to, including myself, we're nicer people when our testosterone is normalized. We actually can handle stress better. I'm like sound like I'm a preacher, but I can also talk to you guys about side effects and I scare the hell out of you. But most of us, once you're handling stress and coping with what's next, you have your bat ready for the next ball to be thrown at you, you become a nicer person. We're in control of our environment. So I really have never seen this thing about aggressiveness or being an asshole because your testosterone is high. Yeah, the bodybuilders doing 1,000 milligrams a week instead of 100 and combining it with all kinds of anabolics, they do have some issues with behavior, aggressive behavior, because they're exposing their bodies to 10 to 100 times the dosage we're using. And I'm not criticizing the bodybuilder, because I learned a lot of what I know from bodybuilding, I did. So, but I do think that there's a stigma associated with testosterone, and some guys don't want to talk about it, or they talk to the gym guy and they don't get the information, or they go online and get the wrong information. So that's why I'm still doing this work, because it's still happening out there.
Jody, may I ask a question here? Chris Nelson, thanks so much for this information.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate you being on. My question for you is on HCG. If I'm on testosterone currently, but if I'm not concerned about sperm production or testicle shrinkage, my gut tells me, like if I'm turning off a part of my body by taking external, testosterone, should I be taking HCG to get that firing and working again or not? Just love to get your thoughts there.
That's $1 million question. That has not been proven in research, and I'm pushing for that. I work with the Baylor College of Medicine here in Houston. We have Houston has become like the mecca of the hormone research. We also have the biggest compounding pharmacy in the country here. But nobody has proven what happens when you shut down that cascade, the LH-FSH, for a long time. What happens to you besides losing sperm count? Is there anything else mood-wise? Because what happens, and this is new data that we're getting, is that when testosterone is started, we shut down not only LH and FSH, but we shut down pregnenolone, progesterone, and those are actually hormones that we need for mood, for brain function. So there. To be honest with you, if I had to start all over again, I'm obviously 34 years into it, I would have started with HCG. Not because I'm looking forward to having kids, never did, but it's mostly not only because of a testicular function, but it's because part of me still wonder, and my mood is definitely better on HCG. But as I said, only one study that just recently, 6 months ago, was published that showed how all the, not only LH-FSH, but a lot, and I didn't show you that cascade, because really, people don't know, but the mother molecule of sex hormones is cholesterol. Cholesterol is where all the hormones come from, the sex hormones. And the first step is pregnenolone, which is the mother of all sex hormones. That is also decreased with testosterone. And what we're seeing is that there's data that shows that nature did not make anything redundant. Like all of the cascade, every single part of that cascade has a function. It's not because, we're creating these hormones so that we eventually have testosterone in the end of the cascade. Every single one. And we're shutting down all those steps. So we have no data, long-term data. If you're okay with testicular, or some people don't have testicular shrinkage, they start with a big size anyways. And you don't, fertility is not your issue and you feel okay, I would not bring HCG into it. It's an additional, obviously, injection, although I inject both together. Some people criticize me for that. I'm not into injecting a lot. I believe that long-term needle fatigue can happen. I'm also not opposed to creams and gels. We're using now a new approach, using the creams that people used to put on their abdominal area or shoulders. We're putting them on our testicles, on our scrotum, because we're seeing that the absorption there is better, and also DHT increases and libido increases. So I don't have a clear answer. Obviously, I have a strong bias for it, but I'm a data guy, and we have not seen what happens you're a young man, obviously. When you get to be my age, you've had LH and FSH shut down for that long, like I did for 20 years. Did I miss anything? I look back and say, I don't know. All I know is that I'm glad I have HCG now, because I would not. Sex drive tends to decrease not only with age, but I do think there's testosterone tends to wear off after many years. That effect, that edge, that that hunting feeling. I tell guys that hunter in you comes out again. The hunter meaning looking for the next challenge, looking for the next. It really is about that hunting feeling for not only sexual but everything in life. And HCG brought it back for me because I'm a long-term testosterone user.
Got it. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Chris, in the absence of HCG, there could be an argument for some men to supplement the right amounts of pregnenolone and perhaps DHEA. But Nelson also hit on something I think that's very key. That whole cascade starts with that gooey substance called cholesterol. So, Nelson, what's your experience with men taking Lipitor or cholesterol medications as it relates to
There's
testosterone?
contradictory data, but I have strong biases for some studies that show that decreasing cholesterol too much will end up decreasing sex hormones, testosterone, obviously one of them. So I'm not an enemy of statins. Um, I guess because I'm lucky, I don't have cholesterol issues, but and a lot of guys in my forums are enemies of statins. There's this, and but I do believe they affect, especially if you bring, most doctors want you to be very low on cholesterol, like 60. That is danger zone. And that is actually, you are killing the molecule that generates all of these hormones. And some statin studies show decreased libido and decreased testosterone. I just saw a review, obviously it was paid by pharma. I'm sorry, I'm sounding like a conspiracy guy again. But yeah, I'm not a friend of statins. I would not tell somebody not to take statins if they have a family history of heart disease and high LDH cholesterol.
Yeah, thank you for that. Hey, Nelson, what have you seen as far as females with low T symptoms? I know that some of those are going to be the same symptoms that men have. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. On the female side, I'm glad I have a Facebook group. There are like 5,000 women now. And they always ask, why is a man moderating the site? Say, hey, wait a minute, I'm a friend of. So they're always like asking every month, somebody, a new member, like, why is a man moderating our group? I created it, and I created it because my guys were asking, Nelson, I need to get information about women and hormones because my girl doesn't want to, I'm ready. I'm horny. And that was the reason why I created this. But anyways, so what happens with women, believe it or not, there is not a single FDA product approved for women in testosterone. There were 2 attempts to approve one, and they didn't do the studies very well, so it was shut down. So how do women get testosterone? They get it through compounding pharmacies. They make creams a very low concentration. A woman really needs 1/10 of the dose, and testosterone is produced by the ovaries and the adrenal glands. 2 sites. We only have 1 site of testosterone production in men, testicles. They have it from 2 sites. And DHEA also works for them to increase their testosterone, not for us. So, so you get them tested, obviously. And that's another question. When do you get them tested? Because a premenopausal woman is going through cycles, right? So when do you catch that level? And that's another discussion. It's like they say 27 days into it. Postmenopausal is easier because after women have menopause, they become more like men. Their hormone levels are stable, low. They all go down, progesterone, estrogen. So it's easier to test them and treat them. Although there's some controversies there. I'm not going to get into that. That's 2 hours. But women tend to respond excellent to testosterone, and you see it in my group. I mean, they tell you. They usually don't take testosterone alone. Usually they get, the compounding pharmacies make a little bit of progesterone, a little bit of estrogen, and they get obviously testosterone. So they rub it like a cream. They rub it on their legs, and most of them definitely their libido go up. It's hard to find doctors. That's why I'm creating that directory that treat women that way comprehensively, and it's definitely not covered by insurance. So there's, as I said, not a pharma FDA approved product, which is insurance only pays for pharmaceutical products approved by the FDA that are actually labeled as a brand name. So these are products from compounding. So if it wasn't for compounding, women will have a lot of trouble accessing hormones because obviously there are more limitations there. But yeah, man, I mean, that I wish more women got their hormones tested, not only tested, but tested on the right day of the menstrual cycle or on the postmenopausal side. So anyways, I tend to talk too much, man. So shut me up when I'm like, you've had enough of my answer. So appreciate it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Hey, Nelson, I just want to say, appreciate the info. I think I really took away some things personal. My wife walked through behind me and she said, give me his name and number when you started talking around thyroid impact. And so maybe generate some interest there. But one question I have, and actually, I actually have a kid who is going through some things, and we're learning things around. Here's a 20-year-old kid with low testosterone, what's that, SHBG? That looks like half of what it should be for a normal person, below. And we recently picked up an autoimmune issue that's causing. So I was just wondering, what's your views around the linkages between autoimmune and testosterone?
Oh, there is so much data. Most of the data on testosterone came from HIV. Talk about an immune dysfunction, right? But yeah, once there's an autoimmune, anything autoimmune, MS, lupus, you name it. There are over 1,000 autoimmune diseases that most people don't know about. We also have a constantly active and fighting immune system. And autoimmune means it's fighting itself, it's fighting ourselves, and there's constant inflammation and so all hormones, thyroid, testosterone, tend to be disrupted and deficient. Obviously, the best way to treat autoimmune, and thank God we have them now, we didn't have them over 5 years ago. We have a lot of biologics and you see a lot of the ads on TV, right? For arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, for many, we have now oral and injectable biologics that dampen down the immune system auto activity, the response, and that tends to normalize some of the hormones. But a 20-year-old, I definitely, and obviously you took him to a doctor, otherwise you would not be saying they had autoimmune effect. That's a specialty that for kids that age, we doctors usually don't prescribe testosterone. I didn't really talk about clomiphene or Clomid. It's an oral once a day or every other day that increases testosterone and it protects the cascade. People say, well, why don't we do that instead of testosterone, right? But the reason is that the older folks like me, we don't feel sexual. We don't feel the benefits. But yeah, on paper, we're beautiful. On our lab work, it's like amazing, but we don't feel the effects. But for younger kids, and I call a 20-year-old kid, they can preserve their function and yet have normalized testosterone. So clomiphene is an oral generic by prescription at lower doses. Every other day preserves his fertility, can increase his numbers, and so that's what is usually prescribed for anybody under 25 or even under 28, because we want to preserve their testicular function. Most of these guys are going to have kids eventually, and the long-term effects are there. So that's what we look at. Obviously, treating the autoimmune dysfunction is really first what you need to do in the priority list, because that tends to improve hormones eventually, and then look at the actual hormones again and maybe bring in clomiphene and see if this thyroid is okay and bring some thyroid meds there too.
All right. Okay.
Hey,
Appreciate
Nelson, this is Peyton. Personally, thank you for being here. That's an absolute wealth of you're a wealth of knowledge in this area. Definitely a subject matter expert. I have two quick questions for you, and please keep in mind this is just your personal opinion, not your professional opinion.
Okay.
The first one is around, I think you might have already touched on estrogen blockers. So many years ago, I went to, you mentioned Houston is kind of the mecca for a bunch of different things, but Baylor College of Medicine, I saw a world-renowned urologist down there, good guy. And he had me on Cypionate, but then he also had me on a lot of blockers, estrogen blockers, and I don't recall what they were, but what are your thoughts on that? What levels do you need to be at where you need an estrogen blocker, or has that just been debunked and you don't need that?
That is a constant discussion and question daily in my network, in which I have created more content, more videos, more things to explain, and yet I cannot break through the stigma and the dogma and the misconceptions. We have more and more data coming through that we need estrogen. We need that little bit. It's only 0.4. 0.4% of testosterone converts into estrogen. And you know where? In our testicles. Some in the fat mass, some of it. But our testicles are producing a little estrogen because estrogen keeps a balance. Testosterone alone is great, but it's damaging to the body because testosterone alone, without the friend there helping, will screw up your cholesterol, completely screw it up, screw up your heart disease. Um, yeah, mostly, and inflammation. So estrogen, a little bit of it is almost like the balance effect. And we have seen that the ratio of testosterone to estradiol, which is the main estrogen, should be a certain number, like 14 and above. So it really is the ratio. So obviously, the higher your testosterone, the higher your estrogen, right? Because they are a ratio, right? So what happens, and I love Liv Schultz. He's a friend. I go there to speak a lot, and we work out in the same gym. I love the man. I mean, he's number one in the world, but he also is old school, and I'm trying to. He's changing slowly because he's old school, but he's obviously the father of urology, and I love the man. But anyways, so he overdoses estrogen, and anastrozole is an oral, is a breast cancer drug. It's really a chemo agent for breast cancer. They're giving it to the guys taking testosterone because they want to block the estrogen. So what happens, and one of the main keywords that bring people into excelmale is the two words crashed estrogen or crashed estradiol. It brings estrogen to zero, and guys start feeling really bad. They don't wonder why testosterone isn't working. They don't have sex drive. This is something I'm learning that there's in no studies. They lose penile sensitivity. Sometimes you're having sex and you don't feel your penis that much. I don't know if some people may or not have. I have experienced it back in the days when didn't know what I was doing. Is where you're having sex, but you're not feeling the sensitivity that is what makes sex fun. So they complain of that. They complain of, and they lose bone density long term. So we're getting data that shows that the ratios was important. So obviously, and I have something I have to say is it's obviously I'm not disclosing private information because I'm just disclosing a general statement here. I mean, I don't know, there are obviously over 5,000 tests a month that we do at discounting labs. I obviously, because of privacy, I don't see the results. They have to be by HIPAA protected but I do see a pie chart of how many results were over the range, how many results were within range, and how many results were low. And on testosterone, 80% of guys are out of range, meaning over 800 nanograms. 80%, and these are guys from all over the country. These are not guys from Liv Schultz. These are guys all over the country getting testosterone, and their doctors are running high testosterone, high, like 1,000, 1,500, 12,000, which is pretty high because they think the more the better, right? And they don't really understand that there's a point where your side effects are going to be such. But the estradiol also goes up, obviously, because it's 0.4 of that. So they see an estradiol is out of range. Obviously, it's out of range because your testosterone is out of range. And they hit it with an anastrozole, which is a mistake because so for the last 10 years, I've been lecturing about this. And I do have to say that's something that may piss a few people off, but it's because we are programmed as men, like women are programmed as women about testosterone. They're programmed like, oh, testosterone, all the evils of the world are linked to that hormone. We also program that the word estrogen, we don't want to be women, And in fact, this nature is very smart. We have the yin and yang, and we have it at a certain level. So blocking that estrogen without even calculating the percentage or the ratio is the biggest mistake I'm seeing all over the country. And I'm 62. I've been doing this for forever. I don't think I'm going to get through. I'm not going to get through. It's going to be what it is until I guess we have enough long-term data that shows that a lot of these guys are going to get to old age with brittle bones, because bone is the number one thing you lose when your estrogen is low, 0. And I would say in their 60s, 70s, I'm going to see a lot of these guys breaking bones easily. Obviously, I shouldn't say that, but it's true. And we don't have any data on this. So it's not a speculation because we have actually really good data now. And many of the real top researchers I just need to get Lipschultz to accept. I think what he does, and this is, I have to be honest, I do get a lot of inside information from doctors. They say, Nelson, if I don't provide an estrogen blocker, I'm going to get a call. I'm going to get an email in a few days, because all side effects that men have, they all think it's estrogen related. So either I give it to them now at the beginning, or I'm going to have, my work is going to be doubled. Imagine, that's really, I hear that. I'm not making it up. So a lot of these prescriptions of estrogen blockers are because just doctors they know, I mean, that if you don't give them one, and then obviously, doctor, why I'm not feeling that great, then you have to go, okay, let's remove the estrogen blocker or cut it down. So that's usually what happens. So don't get me started. That's really, I have a 1 hour lecture on estrogen in men. So obviously in women, estrogen is amazing for sex drive in women too, and everything beautiful in women. And obviously they have 10 times the estrogen we have. I mean, menopausal women after menopause, we have more estrogen than they do because of that 0.4%. So anyways.
Great, yeah. Great information.
Thank you.
Second question, real quick. Just again, personal opinion, thoughts on, and I had a lot of buddies that used to do this back in the day, but testosterone, a replacement regimen, a TRT. What are your thoughts around coupling that with an occasional cutting cycle, i.e. menstrual, something like that? And I know if you used to bodybuild, you know what I'm talking about. So.
My first book is about anabolic steroids. Let's be clear, okay? I'm not in the closet about that. You can Google my name and see 2/3 of my links are, because I worked in HIV. That's my background. I learned most of the hormone work from HIV, because HIV was really the pandemic we are going through now. We went through a pandemic that killed almost everybody, and killed them because of muscle wasting. We were all, and I say we because I've been positive for 37 years. And every one of my friends and my partners, they all died in bones. And they were 22, 23-year-old, 24-year-old men and women dying like skeletons. And the main issue that we found is that when we lost all that muscle mass, obviously we died right away. And so I focused myself, first of all, I didn't want to be in bones like everybody else. I had to bury. And I became obsessed with bodybuilding and learning everything about steroids. Testosterone is an anabolic steroid. It is really the main anabolic steroid, obviously at different doses for anabolics. And there's nandrolone and oxandrolone and winstrol that are prescribable, FDA-approved anabolic steroids used for different conditions. Obviously, in HIV, I was able to convince the government to do studies using steroids for HIV-positive men and women, and it was a miracle. It was a miracle. I mean, we all gained muscle, and right away, I gained 35 pounds in the first 3 months. And I became a preacher. That's when I left Shell. I said, this is too important to not. And everybody, all doctors started prescribing the doctors for, and we saw everybody rebounding. And this is before drugs, HIV, all the wonderful things that we hear now. That was before 96. So winstrol was one of them. Oxandrolone is Anavar. Is still prescribed. Lipschultz has a few of the people on that drug because the FDA is kind of relaxing about those drugs because they're FDA approved and we know a lot about them. But something I've seen in the past 5 years is that some urologists, a lot of them, I have to say have a lot to do with it because I lecture them, are using a little bit of those anabolics with testosterone replacement in men that obviously don't have any health conditions. The main reason for that is obviously because they do enhance the effect on muscle and everything. And they decrease sex hormone binding globulin, so they increase free testosterone, which is active. And some guys have great testosterone, but their free testosterone is low; it's under 2%. And obviously, that really has been shown to be the active, the thing that does the job. So, so they bringing those agents, and winstrol or oxandrolone are actually orals. They decrease sex hormone binding globulin, which is the hormone that grabs the testosterone and doesn't let it do its job. So I see now prescriptions, and I was surprised because I thought it was only for cancer and HIV, and all of a sudden it's moving, and I'm glad to see that. I think anything that works with moderation. Obviously, there are side effects. You can read all about them when you download the book, um, but I have nothing against them. I used them for 25 years. Low dose with testosterone. It kept me going, kept me alive. It kept me productive. I wrote 2 books on it. So obviously I don't judge that. I really believe that, and this is me, I'm very, I'm a libertarian when it comes to access. Okay. I think if you have a doctor, if you have knowledge, you know what you're doing, you're not obviously harming anybody, including yourself. We should be able to get things that are at least approved by the FDA and they have some data on them. I'm not talking about starting to get stuff that, and starting to inject your body with stuff that just a body told you to inject. I mean, I'm very careful to protect my immune system from junk that I don't know anything about. People say, Nelson, what do you think about this peptide? Nelson, what do you think about this thing I'm hearing? I don't know. I'm going to let a lot of you guys try it before I try it, because obviously there are consequences for me if I screw up. So Winstrol's been, cuts fat, oxandrolone cuts fat like crazy. I mean, bodybuilders use it for cutting, and but they do have side effects. They decrease your good cholesterol, your HDL. So that's not good. That's not good. And they can actually shut down your estrogen, and people don't know that, and that's not good either. So, anyways, everything. I tell people, if you're gonna put something in your body, an injection, or man, at least read. I mean, your body's a temple, man. I mean, really, don't just because somebody told you or you read it on the internet. Yeah, it depends on what source you get it to, and don't tell your doctor you want to try something because you read it on the internet. There's no bigger turnoff. There's no bigger turnoff for a doctor. Anyways, sorry, I get
Hey,
preachy.
hey, Peyton, on that note, I have a litmus test that I've started using because back in the day, I could argue that, the cycle, nothing wrong with it. You said the keyword cycle. I could argue that oxandrolone does wreck the blood work of some men. I'm thinking cholesterol levels, but I know that it's different for a lot of men. But to me, the litmus test, if you think about what we're about in Thumos, being better men, and that a lot of us, probably most of us, are dads. What would I want my sons to do?
Yeah.
And when I ask that question, it is a mirror test, and I'm like, wow, I love my son so much, I would never want him to do anything other than something that's biologically identical, testosterone, at safe levels, right, if at all. That to me is a huge litmus test. So, okay, why would I do it myself, but I won't allow my son to do it? What's that about? So take that for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Great point. Thank you, Nelson. I certainly appreciate the information.
Simon, you had a question?
Yeah, absolutely. So Nelson, I appreciate this. This is phenomenal, and I'll echo what you said about the estrogen blocker. I was at a synergistic lab, and it was juicing tea, and that was their whole deal, and so much so that they had me up on estrogen blockers and that kind of thing. And I'm now with another group that's a lot more kind of in line with what you're saying. And the first thing I did was drop my tea down, and I didn't need the blocker, and everything else got better. So I'm a big believer in that. The 2 questions I had is, so my wife has been doing some hormone replacement through the same program, and added some tea. Actually, her progesterone was really low as well, and so the labs worked for that. So the first question is, you said that they're obviously in cycles, there's different times and all that kind of stuff. Where is the optimum window? She doesn't test 4 times a year like I do. I wish she would. But if I'm only going to get her to test once or twice, what area would you target within a normal month? Do you have a kind of sweet spot?
Yeah, there's actually a little bit of data. I have an article on Discount Labs about female hormone timing, testing timing. Depends on the ovulation and how long her menstrual cycle is. Some doctors agree around the 27th day in her cycle. That's where progesterone and estrogen are a certain level that can be predicted pretty well in studies. Because obviously every woman has different, not only cycle length, but peaks. in estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. Testosterone also cycles a little bit on through the menstrual cycle, not as dramatically as estrogen and progesterone. So yeah, most doctors that are treating women really are in tune with the timing, because obviously you can get the wrong. Talk about if you're like in the middle of a peak of estrogen, obviously everything's going to be high, and progesterone actually precedes that. But it's around the 27th, because every study changes, but there's like pseudo agreement on that. Obviously, for postmenopausal, it's easier because they're more constant. But that is it. That is why many doctors don't even try to get in the hormone replacement field for women, because obviously you're following a cycle. And for men, it's not like we don't have cycles. We have cycles too, and obviously not like that. But we have morning time. Obviously, is higher than nighttime. As I said, we're starting to see data on seasonal changes too. So yeah, around 27th, I can post or I can send Jody the links to the article that actually goes through the studies. But that's a question that, and you will be amazed how many doctors don't even think about that, where it's like, you cannot diagnose a woman when they're either at the lowest point of the cycle or the highest. It has to be at a midpoint, and you have to find data that can predict what she should be. So it's not like women are complicated. I think nature makes them go through cycles, unlike us. And it's there's a lot more wisdom in treating them. So yeah, 27 is what I've seen. But to be honest with you, you will ask doctors and they'll tell you different things. If you're using DeFi Medical, which is becoming like they're really a leader in, they've been around for 14 years, telemedicine wise, and they treat women and men. Dr. Saya, they're really knowledgeable on women. But you'll be amazed. I mean, if you go into my group, and there are lots of, by the way, there are a lot of men in my women's group, and they're just watching, reading, because they're all searching. What I find out is that women are so busy or taking care of so many things, and we are busy too as men, but they really, they deal with more complexity, even though we think we have more difficult lives, but they don't have time to take care of themselves or even read about health. So a lot of the guys are just devouring this information, and 30% of the members are men,
Yeah. My wife's one who too, I think she won't do for herself. She'll do for the kids and for me and for work and all that before anyone else. So that's a good target. That absolutely helps. The secondary question goes to Jody's point that he just made. And he made it without even knowing that's where I was going to go with the second question. And that is, I do think it's a great test. I've got girls and boys. And so my question is always, what would I want my kids to do this? And so to that end, my wife's only been doing the blood work and hormone stuff for maybe, I don't know, a year and a half. It's been life-changing. And we now, based on some of the results, think that she may have been deficient in some of these hormones from the beginning of our marriage 20 years ago.
Wow.
And so just because it's just night and day, some of the differences. So to that end, we're finding out, like you said, more and more that even in your 20s, possibly even in your late teens, with what was just brought up earlier, there could be deficiencies. So I guess my question is, at what point is it smart, especially with the cost of lab work becoming more competitive, to look at teens and start creating baselines? Do you have a thought on that, so that as they leave the house and begin on their own, they have kind of something to work with?
It'd be nice. I mean, that's definitely a dream. I mean, that's what we all lack. All of us, I can say in this group, because there's no kids here, lack baseline information from our 20s, from our peaks, from when we felt the best. I don't have it. Well, I never had a peak. I was diagnosed at 22, so I never really had a peak. But yeah, I mean, as a father, it would be so amazing that you can invest a little money. It's not much to get your especially the ones that are already gone over puberty, because talk about cycling, those are the puberty, men and women, the girls and boys, they're peaking and everything. But after 21, 22, definitely having a baseline, or just thyroid, testosterone, IGF-1 is not very expensive and it's not really needed. It changes constantly. So I think it's a responsible thing to do. I'm not a father. I'm not a parent, but I do obviously have nephews and nieces, and I'm horrified. I'm horrified with the fact that a lot of the kids are not sleeping. They're on their phones or iPads, texting or all day, all night. And obviously, sometimes I'm glad I don't have kids, because I would be a horrible father. I would be such a mean father. But it really disturbs me that they're fracturing their sleep cycle and their REM sleep, and that's already gonna have consequences on not only mental health but hormones. So part of me is like, why am I seeing 70% of my cells in lab testing coming from 20-some-year-olds that are actually low? And why it's happening is that because it's not because of the food we're eating, or we're all getting a little fatter and we're sleeping less and we're not moving around as much, especially through COVID, but it has to be something else. And I do believe this exposure to blue light that a lot of the kids they're born with, we give them an iPad right away to pacify them. So I think there are going to be long-term consequences with this generation, and obviously they're amazing. They're probably smarter than any of us. But I do believe in hormone. When it comes to hormones, I really believe they're going to be impaired. And they're already showing, those numbers are already showing. And it's, people say, oh, it is the plastics, it's environmental toxins, oh, the pollutants. Yeah, but I think really it comes down to the sleep. And you guys are all, if you're parents, you probably know what I'm saying. You don't even know, you're assuming they're asleep, but they're not. So, yeah. So hormones, I mean, kids and adults, we're producing around, melatonin kicks in once it's dark. If you're looking at a screen till 1 a.m., your melatonin is shut. Melatonin is it jump starts everything. Once you start producing melatonin, obviously you get sleepy. I take melatonin at night, I chew it because I do have problems with that. And then everything starts happening. Growth hormone starts, and thyroid starts producing testosterone, and then we peak around 4 or 5 a.m. Some of us get up to pee, and some of us have erections then. There are nocturnal erections, which are very important because our penises are usually soft and hanging and not really well fed with blood during the day. And that tissue needs to be cleaned and it needs to be washed off. And nature comes in at a peak of testosterone, 4 or 5 in the morning, and brings all that junk out into the bloodstream. So, and that's what happens with long-term, when you lose nighttime sleep cycle erections that obviously are involuntary. So something that happens because nature. Once you start losing that, you develop more erectile dysfunction, because when we don't have a really well flushed penile tissue every night, we start building fibrosis. Calcium deposits start building in our little capillaries, and we start losing blood flow. So the fibrotic penis is common after we start losing years of losing that morning time erection, when most of us, I do, get up at 5 and, oh, okay, well, I have an erection. That's important. That's actually a barometer of men's health, I believe. So when somebody tells me, I cannot get it hard through sex, I ask them, do you have an erection at, in the 4 or 5 in the morning? Sometimes we don't know, but do you wake up? Yes, I do. It says, well, then you need to look at more of a mental health and the performance anxiety issue, because your plumbing is working. It's more of a performance or issue with performance anxiety. So that's when I ask right away. So, okay, have you lost that ability to have sleep time or nighttime erections or morning time? And when they say yes, okay, that's when, okay, let's at least look into that. I'm sorry, I went off. Sorry, yeah.
That's wonderful. Hey, I think the only thing I haven't heard mentioned, and so maybe we talk about it real quickly, is for those that needed testosterone and have gotten on testosterone, what is the upside? As I can tell you, for me and for many men, it has been wonderful. Confidence, energy, strength, patience around having more capacity and more tolerance. Nelson, you mentioned it. I believe that a lot of men sort of say, well, I feel pretty good. Well, it's because it's insidious, and sometimes, and we love the objective with the data, we absolutely love that, but and the subjective matters too, but sometimes I wonder about the subjective. Because I've seen men, once they get on, they're like, holy cow, I didn't know how bad I felt until I felt great again. I'm not saying
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
testosterone, but I'm just blown away by the good results that a lot of men are having. And so I just want to make sure that we mention that, because a lot of forums turn into gripe sessions and people overthinking.
Well,
Everybody's a so-called expert behind the keyboard, but those of us who have done this for over 12 years and we've optimized it, man,
yeah.
it's life-changing.
Yes. And usually people that go on forums are guys that are having problems. Okay. Those that are having great results are not going to waste their time on a forum. Why? Right? You move on with life and do great things, right? So it's a biased sample. They tell me, oh, everybody complains. It's a biased sample. It's not the ones that are doing great, obviously. So yes, I have seen miracles, obviously. I've also seen, and I'm very clear, expectations are way too high. And some guys expect this to be like an injection of motivation and energy and a great mood. So, no, you may want to do street drugs for a while and then crash, because you're not going to have that. There's a dopamine rush. And dopamine is really what makes us feel that we give a damn about things, or relationships. It's really, once you have your dopamine depleted, that's when we don't relate. We don't have motivation. We have bad moods, or we don't care. Somebody's complaining, we don't care. We're not involved. And yeah, there is a dopamine increase, and people feel better. But I have to, because I never go all the way to say everybody should be on it. I have seen where guys don't feel better. I have seen guys feel anxious, and that's more common when the guys are coming to forums, or amped up, or they feel they're always chasing their numbers, they're obsessed. They have problems at home, there are problems in their lives, but they want to just concentrate on their numbers, on their labs, and not want to really look at what's really the problem. And that is a frustration I have. Obviously, I'm sounding like it's more problems than not, but obviously the guys that come to my world are guys that usually have problems. But yeah, I've seen it saved my life. I mean, what kind of benefit can I say about testosterone? Obviously, I have strong biases. I would be dead. I would not be even talking to you guys if I hadn't done all this. But yeah, most guys feel better. Don't get discouraged when you see a lot. Obviously, if you go online, you see a lot of the guys that are struggling or are trying to blame everything on one number, testosterone, estrogen. It's usually estrogen that they're blaming, because it's not the case. But what I said at the beginning about the new normal, watch out for that. I'm an old guy. Went around the corner several times. I've had a lot of health crisis, and I've seen a lot of death, a lot of loss, a lot of everything. But here I am, a happy guy and grateful. But watch out for that. Watch out for that new normal that catches on, and you get used to it, and even people around you get used to you being a certain way, and then you don't even realize you're in a funk, and that's when you wake up. And some guys say, "Well, I felt good, but I'm not feeling as good as I did a year ago. I'm going to stop." That's when they realize, oh shit, okay, I get it. Because after 2 or 3 weeks and they're shut down, their cascade is shut down for 3-4 months, and they are shut down. So they suffer through those times, and they say, oh my God, yes, it works. Oh, I want it back on. But there are some guys that actually email me saying, Nelson, what should I do? I want to get off testosterone. What is the safest way to get off testosterone? It is not a life commitment. And you hear that. If you get on it, you can never get off of it. No, you can get off of it. You'll suffer a little. But, some people take clomiphene, which is that drug I say that is prescribed for younger men, and HCG combinations, just to see if you can jumpstart your own production. faster than waiting 3 to 4 months, which is what it takes to normalize your cascade. Sorry, guys. I told you I was going to talk your head off, so I'm going to stop.
That's awesome. Nelson, how can people get a hold of you? I know you mentioned your forum. Can you give us those names? And I see
Yeah,
some
excelmale. excelmale.com. There's a contact us, and click there. They can click and email me directly. Register there. I obviously I'm biased for my forum, but you'll learn. There's a guy there, Madman. We all have usernames, so it's great for privacy. You can talk about anything. Nobody knows who you are. He posts studies. I don't know. This guy is obsessive compulsive in a good way. He posts new studies every day. If it wasn't for him, I would not be up to speed because this field is moving fast, faster than I've ever seen it. I mean, we're learning a lot about not only testosterone, aging, not slowing down aging, because I shouldn't say that, is aging more healthy, what we call disability-free aging, meaning I want to live to 90 maybe and not have to use anybody to help me walk or nobody pushing my wheelchair. I really hope so. It's a PTSD that I have from my past. Obviously, I don't want anybody to help me. So that's my goal. My goal is to drop dead that day without going through all that nightmare that a lot of people go through, which is weakness, disability, lack of, and there's acceptance to that. Maybe I don't have it. Okay, maybe I don't have it, but I do believe there are things we can do to, I don't think lengthen our lives, but definitely improve the life we have left, and not burden our families and friends so much. Like I see a lot of people, unfortunately, from the old generation, especially, having to go through. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting preachy. So,
how about your book, Nelson? I have to admit, my goal was to read through your book in a couple of nights. And when I
it's no way.
started reading it, I'm like, it was the most comprehensive, best source of information I've ever seen in my life.
Thank you.
And I've been deep diving this a long book for 12 years. And it's an encyclopedia, man. It's a Bible.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to print it in color. People hate to, obviously it's a PDF you download because it's all slides and graphics, and it's very clinical, and I really did it for doctors. I tried to translate every word. I'm not English is my second language, so I'm Spanish speaking. So I tried to make it understandable, but I have to say, it's somebody said it's dense. So if you're having problems sleeping, don't look at an iPad because that affects your REM sleep. But it's everything is there. Many doctors send me emails, they love it because it's actually what they didn't see in medical school. I read every single slide has a reference from a paper I read. I've been doing this for so long. I read almost and I read every paper that comes out. So that's why I tend to be more conservative than what you hear out there, because a lot of guys are talking out of they haven't read a paper or a research paper. So
Nelson, can I send these guys a link to download your book?
Yeah. It's a tab on excelmale. The tab says free book.
Excellent.
Okay, you see it on top, free book. And there's one looking for find a doctor. Blood testing. So obviously that's a forum that is free, but obviously I'm hooking up a lot of stuff there.
All right, appreciate it. Well, Nelson, this has been fantastic, man, and I'm grateful, and I know that the guys got a lot out of this. So we appreciate that. Look at them raise their hand. That means yes.
Thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to more. I do have to say, and I told Jody this, a little personal. I don't have the community. I mean, you guys, that's why I love what Jody's doing, what you guys are doing. It's powerful. It's powerful to have community, to have support. I don't have it. People assume that I do. A lot of people that were my mentors have passed, and have that. Among men, I mean, we're people have stereotypes, obviously, of men being closed up and not sharing and not even supporting each other. I see it in my brothers. They have been isolating themselves as they grow older, obviously with family and all that, but they have isolated themselves from other men and they don't have friends. I know a lot of men, and I have to say every color, every race, every sexual preference, um, were more isolated. I really believe COVID has done a horrible job at making that worse. And I really admire, deeply admire communities that are created like this, especially through COVID, like Jody's, where you guys actually support each other, listen to each other, have tools, because I think we're all looking for tools. I told Jody my biggest, and I do have one fear, is that I need to know what I don't know. What I don't know that I don't know. Because what we know that we don't know, we can always search it, right? And find the solution. But what we don't know that we don't know is really where the most of our lack of growth, that's where it happens, because we don't know what we don't know. So when people bring something to you, it's like, man, I have never thought about that, and it changes your life. That's really what I'm looking for. So anyways, not to get personal, but building community and having support, man, it's part of health and mental health. And you'll be amazed how many men out there are isolated and feeling lonely and feeling like they cannot share with anybody. And I'm seeing that a lot in my world, especially. So thanks a lot. Good night. And hopefully we'll see each other soon.